Did you know that tennis elbow is one of the most common causes of elbow pain? And you don't have to be a tennis player to get it. People with this problem experience deep aching and pain here in the outer portion of their elbow and sometimes into their forearm. They often have muscle weakness when trying to grasp objects or turn doorknobs, even something as simple as holding a coffee mug. One of the telltale signs of this problem is that these people will shy away from and recoil if you go to shake their hand because it can be incredibly painful for them. Now, if you're one of those folks, you're going to love this video because we're about to go over a simple 3-step strategy for eliminating tennis elbow. Let's get into this. The other name for tennis elbow is lateral epicondylitis, and that refers to the little bony point here on the inferior outer portion of the humerus where the muscles responsible for wrist extension attach. And the itis, of course, implies that there's an inflammation of that attachment point. And we used to treat tennis elbow as an inflammatory problem, but we now know that the repetitive microtrauma that usually sets the stage for a tennis elbow causes little microscopic tears in the muscle and tendon that attach to that point, and those tears are the precursor to inflammation. And so the most effective way to treat a tennis elbow is to use strategies that help the body repair that microtrauma. Strategy number 1 is to increase circulation and break up any adhesions in this region. And while you can use a tennis ball, myofascial release ball, or even a foam roller to do this, the unique size, shape, and location of the tissues surrounding a tennis elbow make it incredibly difficult to use these tools effectively. And so for the best possible results, you want to use a tool that's designed specifically for the elbow. So this device is called the Rolflex, and it's a self-myofascial release tool that can do much of what a myofascial release ball and foam roller can do. But this tool is designed specifically to work on the tissues in and around the elbow and forearm, so it makes that process much easier and way more effective. Now, let me show you how this works. So you can see here that it operates like a clamp. There's an adjustability rail on the bottom so that a person with a smaller arm can slide the clamp to a much smaller size, and a person with a larger arm can open it up. You have the ball foam on one side and the flat foam on the other. Handles on top that allow you to control and adjust the amount of pressure that you're putting into your arm, and this firm rubber butt pad on bottom that allows you to anchor the device into the floor. So to use the Rolflex, all you need to do is separate the clamp once you've adjusted it to the right size and slide your arm in between the two rollers. I like to have the ball-shaped roller on the upper portion of the forearm because it's more specific and really allows you to dig into those tissues. From there, I apply light pressure just to hold the device steady around the arm, and I begin gliding across the tissue, kind of rotating my forearm, looking for the most tender band of tissue. Once I've identified that, I'll begin ramping up pressure, squeezing the handles together more and more until I get to a point where there's light pressure but not too much discomfort, and then I'm going to push the device into the floor, into that rubber butt pad to hold it in place, and I'm going to begin sliding back and forth right along that band of tight tissue, going slightly above the elbow and then about halfway down the forearm, just like that. And one of the things that I love about this device is that it allows you to actively stretch the wrist extensors as you're simultaneously foam rolling them. So wrist extensors pull the wrist into this direction. What I'm going to do is be actively flexing my wrist as I slide through, so you can get a two-way stretch where you're holding the tissue in place with those rollers and actively stretching away from it, almost performing like an active release technique while you're doing myofascial release. So super, super effective. All you need to do is 30 to 45 seconds, and that's going to really help you to drive up circulation and begin breaking up adhesions in all of that tissue. Strategy number 2 is to increase fluid dynamics in the region where the tissue damage has taken place. Now, this is going to help your body to flush out any metabolic waste that have been released and are contributing to the localized inflammation in the area, and it's also going to help you to push more nutrients to the damaged tissue all hours of the day, regardless of what you're doing. The only thing that you're going to need for this is a small strip of rock tape. Once you've got that, you're ready to go. Now, before you actually apply your rock tape, there are a few things that you need to remember to do. First, the body part that the tape is going onto needs to be clean, dry, and free of all lotions, creams, and moisturizers. Second, you need to trim the tape to the appropriate length. In this case, we need a strip of tape that's long enough to cover up the entire outer portion of your elbow here and then travel about 20 to 30% of the way down your forearm. So a strip of tape that's somewhere between 4 and 6 inches is probably going to do the trick. And then finally, you want to trim the edges and round those corners. This is going to help make sure that you get a good long-lasting stick and the tape doesn't come off prematurely if you were to catch an edge on something. The rock tape application for tennis elbow is very straightforward. All you need to do is find the lateral epicondyle of your elbow, so bend your elbow and then find that muscular bump there, and if you press into it, it's going to hurt if you have tennis elbow. You're then going to flip your tape over and tear across the backing about 1.5 inches from the edge and peel that away. You're then going to take the exposed edge, go back to that lateral epicondyle and apply the tape about 1 inch above it, just like that. Now it's important that that portion of the tape, that's the anchor, goes on without any stretch. You're then going to take the backing and activate your adhesive, just like that. From there, and this is important, you're going to flex your wrist, bringing your palm towards the underside of your forearm. This is going to elongate all of your wrist extensors, and you're going to lay the tape down in that elongated position. So expose the rest of the tape, grasp the two ends just like that, and then stretch about 20% while keeping your wrist flexed. I'm going to lay that tape down, except for the last inch or 1.5 inches, which is going to go down with no stretch. Then take your backing, rub to activate the adhesive, and you're all set. A properly applied rock tape application will stay on for 3 to 5 days at a time. The third and final strategy is to begin slowly increasing demand on the wrist extensors and the tendons that attach to that lateral epicondyle. Now, building strength and resiliency in those tissues is going to help to make sure that your pain goes away and that it never comes back. But the problem, like we talked about earlier in this video, is that with long-standing tennis elbow, people often experience pain and weakness when trying to activate those muscles. But one of the best ways to work around that issue is to use eccentric only training when you start out building strength in those tissues. To strengthen the wrist extensors using eccentric only motion is simple. We're going to be using an exercise called a rotating curl. So you're just going to grasp a dumbbell or a weighted object. If you've had tennis elbow for a long time and you're experiencing severe weakness, then something as light as a can of beans or a can of soup can work for this. So you're going to grasp your weighted object in a traditional bicep curl position. And we're going to be shifting the concentric load here to the flexor muscle. So we're going to curl up like we're doing a traditional bicep curl at the top of the motion. The palm is facing the shoulder. We're going to rotate the forearm around so now the knuckles are facing the shoulder, making sure that we keep our wrist in a neutral position. So you don't want to allow it to fall into flexion here. Maintaining that straight line at the wrist, you're going to slowly lower the weight down using a 5-second eccentric phase. At the bottom of the motion, you'll rotate back to a palm up position, curl up using the flexors, rotate, knuckles to shoulder, 5 seconds on the way down, working those wrist extensors the entire way. Now, if you experience pain at any point in that eccentric arc, what you're going to do is shorten the range of motion. So say you start to experience pain here as you really begin to elongate that tissue, no problem. We're going to come up about 5 degrees out of the pain and we'll do the entire motion through a pain-free range of motion, still using a 5-second eccentric phase, just through a much shorter range of motion. Now, people always want to know sets and reps here. When you're first starting out, if you've had long-standing tennis elbow, you're going to do only 5 to 10 repetitions and you'll do it just once a day. As the days and weeks go by, you want to slowly work on making sure that you're working through the full range of motion, getting all the way to the point where the arm is completely straight at the bottom, and then slowly increasing the amount of repetitions and the amount of demand that you're placing on that tissue. Eventually, you should work up to the point where you can perform 25 to 30 repetitions with no rest in between. I'm going to include links for the Rolflex and for rock tape in the description down below this video. If you want more information about tennis elbow, you can click the link in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, but don't forget to hit that thumbs up button before you head out of here. Other than that, I just want to wish you the happiest of holidays. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.